Hello and thank you for joining me on the very first episode of the Spectral Circle. My name is Mike, so let me give you a quick synopsis about what this podcast is all about. The Spectral Circle is a paranormal podcast looking into the strange and unexplained. For the first dozen or so episodes, I'll be focusing on the weirder side of the United Kingdom and Great Britain. But further down the line, I shall be spreading further afield and we'll get into the mysteries of the world. I also want this podcast to be fueled by you, the listeners. I would like people who enjoy this podcast to send me voicemails with their experiences, sightings, or close encounters, or stories from friends, families, or close ones. At the end of this episode, I will give out the email address for you listeners to send me your voicemails. I will also give out the subject I will be covering in the next episode. So, if anyone has had any experiences which coincide with that subject that I give out at the end of this podcast, please send me your voicemail to coincide with that episode. And I will continue the same format for each individual podcast of the Spectral Circle. With voicemails, there is a few rules I want people to follow though, and here they are. Rule number 1. Please keep voicemails 10 minutes or under, as it will make it a lot easier for me to edit them into the show. Rule 2. No swearing or profanity, as I want this podcast to be family friendly. Rule number 3, no political talk. This is not a political podcast. This is a paranormal podcast. And rule number 4, which will be the hardest for a lot of people out there to follow. No religious talk. None at all. I know it's going to be harder when we get into the subject of, say, demons and stuff like that. But please refrain from any religious speak, as I want everybody from every background to enjoy this podcast. So, with that all said and done, thank you again for listening to the very first episode of the Spectral Circle. It's time to get on with it. And as I'll say at the beginning of every episode, the circle has been cast. Now let's begin. Hello and welcome back to the very first episode of the Spectral Circle. At the beginning there, you heard a quick introduction on what I want this podcast to be all about. So let's get on to the very first subject, episode 1, Black Shuck, or known around the world as Hellhounds or Devil Dogs. The legend of Black Shuck has produced many names for this legendary hellhound here in the United Kingdom. Now I'm not going to go through every single one of them, but here are just a few. The Capelwaith, the Coosif, the Gallitrot, Gert Dog, the Mooth Doog, Padfoot, Puka, Screeker, and here in my own county of Lincolnshire, Hairy Jack. Though most of us probably know this large black creature as a hellhound or a devil dog, which is hugely influenced by movies, TV and other paranormal programs, the name hellhound or devil dog could actually originate from the Old English word skooker, which actually means demon. Here in the UK and the folklore of Black Shuck, it is said that this hellhound is a harbinger of death, a Grim Reaper-like figure. And it is said if you encounter this beast, you are likely to fall ill and die, or sometimes just straight up die of shock, hence the name Black Shuck. Shuck translates into shock. And just like any other dark entity, Black Shuck likes to hang around the usual haunts, the crossroads, the woodlands, the marshlands, the bogs, the churchyards, the cemeteries. Though Black Shuck brings something a little different to the party. He brings with himself, or itself, an electrical storm. The large black dog is also known in a lot of the world's mythology as a guardian or a protector, or a doer of death. It will go out and seek vengeance upon its prey. But the most commonly known is the Greek mythology's Cerberus, the Hound of Hades. There is also Gamir of the Norse mythology, who is described as the blood-stained hound of Hel and Ragnarok. Though I'm not going to go into Greek mythology and Norse mythology just yet, I might do that on a later episode if you want to hear about it. And we're going to go to Scotland and we're going to talk about the Cúsith, and here is a short description of that hellhound. It is said to be otherworldly, the size of a cow, and it is said to haunt the Highlands of Scotland, and if you are to see this hound, it will bear away with your very soul and take it to the afterlife. Though the weird thing about the Cúsith is its coat is not dark and shadowy like the Black Shuck. It is actually a green, and some people say this is where Scotland get their colours for the tartan, for the dark green and light green. But, I don't know about that. Though half of my family is from Scotland, they've never spoken about the Cúsith at all. I know I might be pronouncing it wrong, so if I am, at the end of the show I will give out the email address. You can send me a quick email and correct me on how to say that word, Cúsith. Though we're going to go over to Jersey now, which is legendary for smuggling. And it said there is a hellhound there called Chico. This is spelled kind of weird. It's kind of Chinese-ish. Tchico. Chico, or the Chico. And this hellhound is meant to appear during the storms to scare off smugglers, though it is said it was a tale that spread around just to prevent smugglers from smuggling on the Jersey shores and the cliffsides and whatnot. Though that storm idea kind of integrates into the Black Shuck legend, with the electrical storm, the bringing of storms to scare off people. And let's go over to Wales now with the devil dog known as the Gwylgi. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. It is spelled Gwylgi. If I'm not pronouncing things right, please do email me. I need the criticism. I need to make this podcast as best as possible. So, any kind of criticism would be good. So, anyway, let's get on to this again. The Gwylgi. It said the Gwylgi is a legendary dog of darkness, a frightful manifestation of a mastiff with deathly breath and blazing red eyes. See, that kind of comes into the Black Shuck legend as well. The blazing red eyes, or the eyes as big as saucers, which you'll hear later in the podcast. But now let's go back to where it all began. Let's start where the legend is meant to have begun. Back into the folklore, back into England, ye old England, way back into the 11th and 12th century, around the year of 1127. A report recorded in the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle, which is a manuscript which is handed out to most of the monasteries at the time. Yes, I know I said I'm not going to get into religion, but you can't help it with some stories like this. It's not actually going deep into religion, it's just based around the monasteries. So here it is, the account which is actually recorded in the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle at the time. Let no one be surprised at the truth of what we are about to relate, for it was common knowledge throughout the whole country that immediately after Abbot Henry of Poitou arrived at Peterborough Abbey, the Sunday when they sang the Azure Choir, many men both saw and heard a great number of huntsmen hunting. The huntsmen were black, huge and hideous, and rode on black horses and black he-goats, and the hounds were jet black, with eyes like saucers and horrible. This was seen in the very deer park of the town of Peterborough, all the way up into the woods that stretch from the same town to Stamford. And in the night the monks heard them sounding and winding their horns. Reliable witnesses who kept watch in that night declared that there might have been as many as 30 of them winding their horns, as near as they could tell. This was seen and heard from the time of the abbot's arrival all the way through Lent, right up into Easter. So there you have the report from the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle. And you can see where the Black Shuck legend kind of takes formation, with the large dog being jet black with large saucer-like eyes. So the next recorded sighting of Black Shuck was in April 1577, though I'm guessing there was many more before this, but word of mouth or written stories and sightings either got lost or destroyed. And the next sighting occurred in the churches of Bungay in Blythborough in Suffolk, and Suffolk is the stew pot, the melting pot of the Black Shuck encounters. This is where the legend springs forth, gains momentum, and becomes what it became and still is today. So let's get into this report. It says, Black Shuck burst through the heavy church doors of the Holy Trinity Church, bringing with it the sound of thunder. The Hound then ran through the church past a large congregation of people, killing both a man and a young boy by making the steeple of the church collapse and crushing them below. When Black Shuck eventually ran from the church, reports say that the Hound left black scorch marks on the northern door, which still remain to this day. So there's the report of Black Shuck, this huge beast of a dog, knocking these heavy wooden church doors down with the sound of thunder, running through this large church full of people, and its sheer supernatural force that followed this dog made the steeple of the church fall down, killing a man and a child. So that's the first report we have of Black Shuck actually killing people, actually bringing death to people. But in the report, it says these marks are still there to be seen to this day. And now I myself would love to go there and take photos of this thing and put them in the Facebook group. There is a Facebook group for this podcast, so please go type in the Spectral Circle Podcast and you'll find it. Please join it and share your photos of paranormal and whatnot. And yeah, I would love to do that. I'd love to do that with a lot of things. But yeah, so there's the very first account of Black Shuck killing people. So let's go forward in time to more kind of recent sightings of Black Shuck. I say recent, the first one's from 1910. So on this report it says 2 men were walking home after a hard day's work when a large black dog started to attack them. One of the men picked up a large stick and tried to hit the Hound, but the piece of wood just passed right through the dog. And as the men were trying to defend themselves from this large hound, it said the dog ran away through a solid brick wall, literally disappeared. So there you have the ghostly essence slowly coming through. We have the large eyes, the red eyes, the saucer-like eyes. We have the sound of thunder from them, other reports. Now we have the ghostly essence of the Black Shuck slowly coming through. There's another similar account from 1913 in Ballygar, County Galway, Ireland. Reports say that a large black dog is said to haunt the area and has been seen by many passers-by, but when they look at the Hound, it simply just vanishes into thin air. Now the next report we're getting into is from 2001. Now these next reports are kind of freaky. This is where the more paranormal, the more macabre side of the story start coming through. So here's a report from 2001. It's a summertime on the A684 heading to Yorkshire, which is a motorway. It says a large hound bounded in front of a car heading towards Leaming. The female driver closed her eyes and hit the brakes hard to avoid hitting the dog. She thought it was somebody's pet that got loose. And the passenger woman said she had her eyes completely open while the dog passed through the bonnet, which is the hood, and came towards her. And as it came towards her, she kept her eyes wide open, and she said the dog had no facial features whatsoever. It was blank. It was a blank canvas. All she could make out was its floppy ears, and it was formed of a shadow-like essence. Now, when they got to the location they wanted to be, the driver told a male friend of this encounter and what happened. And it is said in the report that the male later went home and committed suicide. So this kind of ties into the harbinger of death. Black Shuck is bringing ill fortune or ill to somebody, making them commit suicide. Though it could have been this guy was depressed, depression is not funny. He could have gone home, planned to do this anyway. But there you have the death coming with the story of the black dog. Now another account from the same kind of area in Yorkshire, in Baildon. It's kind of similar. It's sadly not dated, but it's very similar. It says, the Shuck has been observed in the area. It is said to have a bald head with wide eyes, much like a monkey, while its body is that of a large, shaggy dog. It leaps in front of cars travelling along the Rattin Road, only to dart out the way in the last possible second. So it's playing chicken. It's possibly trying to make people crash. And this is the part that really gets interesting to me, because if you're like me, you are interested in all cryptids. Now just listen to this. The Hound either darts out of the way on all fours or walking upright like a human. Now standing upright, that gets me very interested, because I am interested in werewolves, skinwalkers, dogmen. Now dogmen is something I really want to get into in a future episode, because I love stories of dogmen. Very creepy. So yeah, I'll definitely get into that. So there you have another similar incident in Yorkshire, the same kind of area, of this weird dog, but this one, eyes much like a monkey. Weird, very weird. So here's a kind of threatening encounter from Beckenham in Nottinghamshire on Old Trent Road, which again sadly not reported. Some of these get jotted down, shoved in the case file, I'm guessing, and the police just laugh it off and ignore it. So it says, a large black dog with glowing red eyes is said to have driven a local farmer insane after the farmer wanted to block the creature's path. So I'm guessing this dog, this hound, wanted to get on the farmer's property to get to livestock. The farmer wants none of it, blocks its path, and the farmer is apparently left almost paralysed. The hound is said to walk from churchyard to the nearby marshland, then completely vanish from view and dissipate. Another ghostly story of the black hellhound, the black dog with large glowing red eyes, saucer-like eyes. So there you have a few more recent reports of this Black Shuck, this devil dog. Now, I want to tell you a quick sighting that actually made me want to do Black Shuck for the very first episode of the Spectral Circle. And I've not told many people this, because this is a personal experience, and you tell people and people think you're crazy, people laugh at you. But this is my own personal story. This is what happened to me. I've told a few people. The people who were there actually know what happened. So yeah, this is the whole reason why I chose the Black Shuck for this very first episode of the Spectral Circle. So this will be the very last encounter story, which is one of my own. Then I get into a news article, and then we'll end the show. Yes, it's going to be a very short show, with it being the first episode. So I'll talk about that more at the end of this episode. So I'm going to stop stammering and get on to my story. Alright, it was back in 2003 on a Halloween night, and me and a couple of mates were just coming out of the pub. I was in my very early 20s. I think it was about 21 or 22. Yeah, it would have been about 22, I think. So yeah, we was coming out of the pub. We wasn't drunk. One of my mates doesn't drink at all, so he was sober. There was just me and my other mate who was slightly tipsy. With it being Halloween, we thought we'll go to the local woodlands, because there's a pretty biggish Wiccan community here in Lincolnshire, and it's said that the Wiccans hold celebrations at the woods on Samhain, which is Halloween night. So we all head over to the woods. We'll walk in for about 40 45 minutes. We get there. We get to the spot where this celebration is said to be, into the woods. About 20 minutes deeper into the woods, off this gravel trail kind of thing. And we get into the clearing and there's nobody there. Downer. We wanted to see some witchy dancing and some, chanting and some rituals and good festive fun. But there were signs of a dying fire, well, a dead fire. There was slight embers. It was now about 3 a.m. So we thought, bugger it, we're going to go home. And we start heading back down the trail, down this path. And as we're like, let's say, 5 minutes down this trail, I decide to look back because I feel something's following me. And I see a shadow dart from left to right. And I'm like, what the hell is that? And I asked my mate, do you think something's following us? Because I can see something. And he looks back and he says, no, I don't see anything. Then we continue walking. Then I look back again and I see the shadow rushing towards us. Now I shout out my mates instantly because I thought it looked like a Rottweiler, a big Rottweiler dog chasing us. And I say to him, dog, dog! And we all start running. And they're looking back and I'm looking back and we're running and running. And we get to just about to the entrance and we look back and there's nothing there. So we all slow down to I was running for my life. I was scared as hell. Literally scared as hell. Because I've had a bad encounter with a dog when I was about 12 years old. I used to take an alley shortcut to school. And as I came round this alley, near the end of the alley, a Doberman came out of this gate and started snarling at me, growling at me. I was literally, brown trousers. I didn't literally brown trousers, but I felt like I was going to. Then the owner came out and got the dog in, and then I was able to pass. But yeah, as we were running, we come to a slow, jog. Then we start walking fast. Then eventually stopping just outside the entrance on the pavement, resting against the fencing. And I said to my mate, did you guys see a dog? And they was one of them, the one that doesn't drink, he was like, yeah, I saw a dog. And my other mate was like, yeah, I saw a dog. And then the one who doesn't drink said to me, it had red eyes. And I was like, really? And he was like, yeah, the glowing red eyes. And I couldn't remember if it did have glowing red eyes or not, because all I could make out was it's a shadow and it looked like a Rottweiler. An essence form of a Rottweiler dog. That's what I saw. And that stuck in my mind all these years, and that's what interested me in this subject of Black Shuck. That's the thing that made me want to do this podcast. Though I've been interested in the paranormal since a very young age, probably around 7 or 8, because my mother used to watch Unsolved Mysteries and Strange But True, stuff like that, and I always watched it with her. And also FBI Files, which really got me interested in true crime as well. And that's why I'm such a horror lover. I love horror movies and horror books, and I love the essence of horror, because horror brings out everything in people. That's why I like the paranormal so much. It brings out fear, and fear is a good instinct to have. It's a good emotion to have. It can save your life. But anyway, enough of that. That's the main account of this black dog that I had, and that's what made me want to do this. So I'm going to stop from rambling and get on to what I want to say next. And that's on May 16th, 2014. Skeletal remains of a large dog which measured 7 feet long were unearthed in Leiston Abbey in Suffolk. The dog was identified as a male and would have been buried in and around the same time as the Black Shuck encounter at Holy Trinity Church. That's the one in 1577 which barged through the doors, killed them 2 people, and left scorch marks all over the northern door area. So, what do you think? Because could this have been the legendary Hellhound that they unearthed the bones of? That's what the papers in England seem to think. But I don't know. You cannot put flesh and blood to something that has glowing red eyes, emerges with electrical storms, and literally disappears into midair. And that's thank you for listening to the very first episode of the Spectral Circle. I know it's not the best episode, the best quality, the best recording. It's just been me rambling on for 22 minutes or so. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. Please join the group. Please give me critical feedback on iTunes. I'm going to put this up on YouTube. The channel will probably be the Spectral Circle Podcast. So I'm going to put it on there. You can listen on there. But I'm going to disable comments for YouTube because I want all comments to come to me via email. Same as the voicemails. So here's what I want to do with the voicemails. Now the next show is going to be about ghosts and spirits and hauntings. So if you have had either a Black Shuck or Hellhound or Devil Dog experience, if you have had a ghostly encounter, a haunting or an experience, remember the rules. 10 minutes or less, no profanity, no politics, no religion. Right? All these voicemails can be sent to thespectralcircle@gmail.com. Again, thespectralcircle@gmail.com. And if you are sending me a voicemail on Devil Dogs, Hellhounds, please put that in the subject bar on top of the email. Hellhound or Devil Dog, and put VM for voicemail. If you are sending me a ghost voicemail, do the same, put ghost VM or spirit VM or haunting VM. It just makes it easier for me to gather these individual voicemails, put them into a category, listen to them, and choose which one I want to put on the next podcast. I will be doing the same subject probably more than once, maybe a part 1, maybe a part 2, and we can do that from that way. So, thank you very much again for listening to the very first episode of the Spectral Circle. I have been Mike, and remember, any criticism, please send me it. Please email me, thespectralcircle@gmail.com. Go and join the Facebook group, which is the Spectral Circle Podcast. And I will see you on the next episode, which will be Ghosts and Hauntings. The circle is now closed. Goodbye.